How we eat determines to a large extent how the earth is used. This is a quote from Wendell Berry, who is a pioneer in the sustainable agriculture movement. And I find this quote extremely relevant and powerful when talking about food, food systems, and traditional wisdom. So let's take a look at this. What do we mean by our earth family? First of all, we want to acknowledge the interrelatedness to all beings on this planet. And from that thinking, we understand seventh generation thinking, which means that all creatures have inherent and equal value on this planet. So we have to think of them as family members in order to have a sustainable relationship. Next, as the title says, 7 generations. So we have to think 7 generations ahead. How do our actions today impact 7th generation? And this is part of a very traditional indigenous worldview that's shared in many different cultures and traditional populations around the world. Next is the concept of do not take or steal from others. And that includes other beings as well as other generations, whether it's past or future. So the idea that we don't take more than we actually need today. And lastly, it incorporates this principle of ahimsa, which is nonviolence towards the earth and all of Earth's creatures. So when we start to think in these terms about how we relate to the creatures on this planet and the earth herself, we can start to think about our relationship in this 7th generation way. The other thing that I want to explain to you is how the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, used to view the earth. They used to call the earth Gaia, which was named after a goddess who was defined as being intelligent, living, and responsive. So again, if we think of the earth in that way, it changes our appreciation for what's all around us and lies under our feet. If we contrast that to the industrialized model or the industrialized way of thinking, it's a very narrow and reductionistic approach where we think of earth or what we extract from the earth as only being beneficial for humans. And so this kind of narrow and rigid thinking is based on this idea that humans are somehow separate from the earth, that we are superior or can have the ability to dominate the earth. And it's kind of changing our relationship between being part of the living earth to a creature that dominates and controls the earth. And so we have to sort of tease this apart now and see, well, how does that relate to our food and our food production models? Well, let's take food first. From a more traditional viewpoint, where we are earth family, food is something that's revered as sacred, that nourishes the body, that we deem as holy. You can think of the biblical reference in the Old Testament where the Hebrews would use food as a covenant. Those kosher practices of eating were a covenant with God to represent a sacred relationship. We see this in Catholicism as well, with giving up certain foods for Lent, for example, as a way of spiritual advancement or healing. So this relationship with food has been part of our human culture and history world over. Now, if we look at the FDA definition of food, it's a stark contrast, and I'm actually just going to read it to you. The FDA definition of food is, food includes any article manufactured, sold, or represented for use as food or drink for human beings. This is, of course, includes chewing gum and any additive or product process that alters the food is also considered food by definition. And you can see what a difference this makes. There's no reference to nourishment or health or sustainability or even the earth in this definition. And if we take this a step further, it actually also shows up in our food production models. So when we think about traditional food production systems or traditional food production models, they take into account this relationship with the earth and carry it into food production. So these are often low intensity, meaning that they don't impact the earth very significantly, that they are attuned with the regenerative cycles of the planet because it's moving with and respecting and creating with. However, when we look at industrialized food models of production, again, it's very different. It's about, input, extract, control, and try to maximize yield and productivity. So the outcome is very different. And we're going to get into this a bit more. But this starts the discussion on how our worldviews color our ideas about food and food production. Traditional food models are more resilient to climate change and minor fluctuations within the Earth cycle. Industrialized food models are more vulnerable, and we're going to take a look at this closer next.